So next I wanted to talk about the data that I passed out. So there's the graphic charts, which are fun, but it's this Department of Labor data that I find quite interesting. They update this data actually twice a year. So the most recent data on the web is currently March 2009. This data just says what percentage of people get paid vacation or paid sick leave or paid holidays. There's similar graphic data in quite in-depth detail that says how many days people get based on how many years they have with the company. So if you go to the dol.gov, there are reports there that include that. So we like to talk within the labor movement about the union advantage. And if you look, they do have a breakout of union and non-union, and it's a little less than convincing that we have a union advantage here. But one of the reasons, and there's a footnote, it talks about the teachers, which are often who are often unionized. And even though they get their summers off, it's not considered vacation time. It's considered that they have a 9-month work contract. Another fairly large portion of the union population is construction workers. So the people working on the roads are often unionized. Certainly on government projects, often the construction workers are unionized, and they tend to work on a certain project, and so there are, in that case, a clear segment of unionized workers who don't receive vacation, and I know a lot of those workers would really appreciate vacation.
When you mentioned teachers, I know their contract is 9 months, but we do get 10 months depending, but we do get vacations.
Well, actually, if you look on page 13, it's labeled at the top. It says the percentage of teachers who get paid vacation is 12. So what they're pointing out is, yeah, and in the footnote on the bottom of page 14 does say specifically about the teachers that it's considered that they don't. I believe I read that somewhere. Maybe it's on a page that I didn't reproduce here. Anyway, in general, the labor movement is all about fighting for more, wages and better benefits and working conditions. Another scary statistic that I got from John Graaff is that the number of Washington businesses that provide paid vacation as a benefit dropped from 73% in 2007 to 63% in 2008. It's just staggering, and so clearly things are getting worse, not better. So when I was preparing my remarks for today, I had a huge advantage in that John Graaff, I mentioned, came and spoke at the Washington State Labor Council Convention, but also in June we had the Pacific Northwest Labor History Association, and he was given time to speak there as well, and he's done a lot of great research on the history of the labor movement's fight for more paid time off, and he generously shared his remarks with me. So the remainder of my talk, we can give credit to John for. If some of what you hear from John tomorrow sounds familiar, it's because he shared it with me today, or I'm using it today. Okay, so the labor movement, through their struggles and courage, gave us the 8-hour day, the 40-hour work week, and the weekend in America. And way back in 1886, there was a massive May Day protest of 500,000 workers across America fighting for the 8-hour day. One of those locations was Haymarket Square in Chicago. And some people refer to it as a riot. There was a bomb that went off. Some policemen were killed. They brought in a bunch of the protesters and tried them and hanged them, and it was just a horrible day in labor history. So it was way back and even before 1886. By that point in time, the fight for more time, and some were fighting for 10-hour work days. This was back when people often worked 12-hour work days. So just a gradual fight way back then. 26 years later, I want to talk about the Lawrence, Massachusetts. thousands of poor women came streaming out of the textile mills for the snowy streets of Lawrence, Massachusetts in January 12th of 1912. They carried banners that read, "We want bread and roses too." Bread and roses are symbols of labor's struggle. Bread representing higher wages, and the women of Lawrence, who made 16 cents an hour, certainly needed higher wages, but roses too. Roses representing shorter hours. Time to smell the roses, time to live. Small art and love and beauty their drudging spirits knew. So the labor anthem tells us of the women of Lawrence. Yes, it is bread we fight for, but we fight for roses too. The Lawrence Declaration reads, "We, the 20,000 textile workers of Lawrence, are out on strike for the right to live free from slavery and starvation, free from overwork and underpay, free from a state of affairs that had become so unbearable and beyond our control that we were compelled to march out of the slave pens of Lawrence and in united resistance against the wrongs and injustice of years and years of wage slavery. Their demands, like most workers' demands, were modest. A raise in pay from 16 cents to 18 cents an hour, and perhaps more importantly, double time for overtime. By the 1930s, the American Federation of Labor was fighting for a 30-hour work week. By 1936, labor leaders had thrown their support behind the Labor Department's committee report on vacations with pay. Way back then, the committee wrote, "Some 30 countries have laws under which workers enjoy the benefit of annual vacations with pay. In many of these countries, industry is not developed to such an extent as to bring about the repetition, speed, and monotony which are found in the industries in the United States. Especially because of our advanced technological development, it is imperative that we provide for American workers the protection to health and safety now guaranteed by law to so many workers throughout the world." That was in 1936. Now, every country but the United States, the Guianas, Nepal, and Burma has come on board. Doesn't that embarrass you? Don't you expect more from your country? So that's some of this other data that shows, particularly this chart that shows that we have no guaranteed vacation. There are those who will say that now is not the time to bring up such luxuries as paid vacation, not when the economy is hurting and people are out of work. But that is to forget the history and to lose sight of the forest for the trees. It was in the depths of the Great Depression that labor pressed President Roosevelt towards the most sweeping worker-supporting reforms this country has ever seen: Social Security, the right to organize, the minimum wage, the 40-hour week, unemployment insurance, and progressive taxation of corporations and the wealthy. Against every one of these, the corporations and the timid cried, "No, we can't. Now's not the time. It'll destroy business. It'll be the end of Western civilization as we know it. It will cost jobs and make us less competitive." None of those dire warnings turned out to be true. In every case, the result was the opposite. Our country and corporations gained from the change. It's time to call the Chamber of Commerce and corporations on their cries of wolf and say, "Not now. You can't fool us anymore. You won't block progress anymore. You won't steal our wealth and crush our spirits. You won't stop American working men and women from achieving the same protections and the same balanced lives that workers have won in other countries. We must bring back the work-life balance by giving Americans more time off and sharing the work that needs to be done. As Samuel Gompers, famous labor leader, put it, as long as a single worker cannot find work, the hours of labor are too long." And that's where vacation comes in. We must not come out of this recession in the same way we entered it, with stagnant wages, longer hours, and ever-increasing stress. Vacations are not a luxury. They're essential to our health, our families, and our freedom. As the old song puts it, our lives shall not be sweated from birth until life closes. Hearts starve as well as bodies. Give us bread and give us roses. It's time to bring back the roses. Each generation must light the flame anew. There is no present like the time. That's thanks to John, by the way.